Welcome to the Moms I Know with Sheila Walsh-Dunton and Maria Anderson-Farner. Two moms on a mission to reclaim childhood and take you from surviving to thriving on your parenting journey.
Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Carl Jung. Hi, this is Sheila.
And this is Maria.
And we want to welcome you to the Moms I Know. Today, we are super lucky because we have a friend of both Maria and I, Teri Taylor. Teri personally identifies with overcoming obstacles and transforming barriers into personal power. As a transformational wellness coach, she holds safe and loving space for people to generate deep insight into unconscious patterns, which keep them from having choice to create an empowered life. Her clients gain clarity, experience profound healing, and adopt new ways of being. She draws from her own personal experiences, specialized training, and heartfelt commitment to supporting others elevate and transform their lives. So Teri and I met through homeschooling, and Teri, we met in Maria's classroom, and so Maria knows Teri quite well as well. And one thing that really struck me with Teri was she has a deepness, this inner wisdom, and to know what she's doing now, it fits perfectly. It explains who you are, because whenever I sit down with you, we go deep and we have these conversations.
Yeah, no small talk.
Right.
It's just like, okay, let's drop in.
Exactly. And so I'm so excited that we're going to be doing this. One of the things that I think really, you have a lot of interest, but one of the things that really I always want to know more about, and it's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, is the generational healing piece. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us more? Because it's something Maria and I, we've touched on a few times, and we've been kind of prepping our listeners saying we will be interviewing you. So tell us more about how you came to learn about generational healing and kind of like what does it mean?
Absolutely. Generational healing, my path to identify with it has been really my own journey. My own healing process is what brought me to it. So in generational healing, there is little threads that go, it's not actually a change in our DNA, but there's threads that are unfinished. There's traumas, they talk about inherited traumas. And so in my own healing process of coming through some major changes and major grief and some major life things, there was little pieces that I felt of unfinished business. And that's what really brought me to this kind of work. Mm-hmm. And it's been such a process to just see that the threads that can go really generations back. So when you talk about ancestral, healing and traumas, it's not necessarily just with your grandparents or your great uncle. It can go, multiple generations back, and your genes can still carry that imprint. And so you're not having a choice of how you're living out your life.
You're not having a choice to live out your life because you're holding on. Your DNA is...
Your DNA is, yes, it's a genetic imprint. Mm-hmm. So it's not a change in the DNA, but it's an imprint that's actually expressing itself through you.
That is so heavy.
It is really heavy.
Right. And this study, it's new. We're hearing a lot more about it. Just yesterday I saw something on Facebook about it, just the same exact thing, these imprints. How long, who are the people, who has influenced you in this? Who?
So Bert Hellinger is one of the pioneers, and he was a scientist, and he has done many, any of his writings are fantastic. And he started the study of this. And I personally trained under Mark Wolin, and he's up here in the Bay Area. And he has been a teacher of this work called Family Constellations for over 30 years. And so the family constellation work is essentially, it's a healing modality of where you go in and you really get to do this ancestral trauma work, where you go in and you get to heal all the facets and go into all the different pieces.
what does that actually look like in terms, because I actually have Mark Wolyn's book, It Didn't Start With You, How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle. How, like, your process, for example, how long did it take for you to, you know, to do this work? And
so I was probably about 43 years old, and there was a little piece of me, you know, I was interested in this work, and there was a piece of me that I knew there was questions. Things would come up and it felt like unfinished business. And it felt like it really wasn't mine, but I was just, you know, it's like, you know how you have those things that you do in your life and you're like, they just don't feel resolved. You know, like maybe it's a friendship or a career choice that you had, or, you know, something that just doesn't have a resolve. So I went after it. I'm like, there's unresolved here. And I just kept digging. And, you know, when you have an open heart, and that's the main piece of it, is when your heart is open to have a look. That's when you can see. And so the constellation work is where we come together, and it can be just two of us, or it could be a group, a whole room of us. And there is a morphic field when we all drop in to what's happening there, where you literally can take on and go into the imprint. And sometimes you don't even know what that, often you do not know where it came, you know, you don't know where it came from, but your body knows.
Gosh.
Your mind might not know, but when you're able to open your heart and drop into it, it will reveal itself because it's there.
Right. That's really, that's scary. You know?
Well, you know, people talk about, oh, you know, you carry diabetes because your grandfather had it, or heart disease, or whatever else is passed down. That's so common, right? Like that's the normal run of the meal, and, you know, for medical, but we don't think about our psychological wellness or our emotional wellness.
Right.
And this is also carried.
Yeah. I think about my own story and how, and Maria and I have talked about this, how, you know, we're parents, grandparents of immigrants, and the immigrant story, and how intense some of those stories are, coming to America and everything. And I mean, and even bringing it to today, I'm thinking of the children at the border who are being separated, and that damage that we are doing, you know, knowing that that is going to carry have psychological effects. But like, you know, I think about my own story and how, you know, my father was just immediately, you know, he was a San Francisco policeman in the 60s and 70s. And if you know, like our history, it was very tumultuous at that time. And like just these stories. And so I just know that I'm an empath and I feel it. And I'm like, is that part of it, you know, this unresolved business of not knowing, and, you know, and so it just, that's what got me to get this book. It Didn't Start With You. And when I look, there's a checklist in here, you know, and I like over 50%, over 75%, I could check all these like boxes.
That's me.
You know, of things that have happened. So that's what drew me to this. And yet I haven't had the resolve yet, you know, and I think that is the work.
That is right.
Well, and I look at this whole idea of, you know, as parents, we're trying to raise this next generation to, you know, really transcend this type of thing that, you know, that we carry, and we parent either differently than we were parented, or we bring in the things that we really enjoyed and loved and got from our families. But, you know, you're both talking about like there are those things that we know, and then there are those things that we don't. And so, I mean, you know, for those of us that know a bit about our family background, of course, there's the positive things, and then there's also the trauma that happened. But this idea that we're going back generations, the things that we have no idea what even happened, and yet we can sense these things in our body. And Teri, the way that you talked about relating that to the physical things, you know, the genetics that we carry, and yet now we're learning that we can transcend that with what we're putting into our bodies, what we're surrounding ourselves with the physical environment, that we can shift that with the epigenetics. And so what I'm hearing is that with this generational healing, we can really, not only can we change this for the future generations, like, we can break the patterns. People talk a lot about the patterns. We can break the patterns, but now we can really do our own healing. And you were saying earlier this idea that, yes, it all starts with us. And when we do our own inner work, then hopefully we can transcend that, and then we can raise our children with the freedom to be who they are truly meant to be. Am I getting the essence?
Absolutely. It's actually, Maria, it's not just going forward and with ourselves, but when you allow yourself to do that deep healing where it came from, you can actually shift and clear whatever's happened in the past to make a whole new pathway, or a clearing for what's gone before you. And that's been my personal work.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And that was back into the war with my grandmother on my father's side. So these imprints are left in us, and they're like unfinished little threads that are just, that don't have a way. And when we're able to clear that and heal it, then we can create our own blueprint. And that's truly my desire for my child.
I'm picturing, I'm getting this sense of this beautiful, clear space for our children to grow into, to their, ultimate potential. I actually got this vision of just like this just ray of light that now our children can truly be who they are meant to be. They don't have all these pullings from all of these pieces that aren't theirs. Yeah.
Because we all have these pulls, or these, and it could be positive things. Mm-hmm. It could be negative things. It doesn't, it's not a positive or negative. It's just an impression that's left there that's like unfinished business.
So how did you know it was, you said, your father's mother during the war? Like, how did that come up? Because I know in part of this, it didn't start with you. A part of it is finding that resolve with that parent, or with, and actually having the talk with them, and really kind of, saying, I'm sorry, or saying, moving forward and learning more of the story. How did you?
Well, sometimes you don't even, my father's been dead for 20 years. My grandmother's been dead for 17. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily a conversation that you have to it's not a conversation you have to physically have. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, healing looks different for everybody in every way. And for me, this was a really intense one from the war. And my ex-husband was Japanese, and this was a really deep healing that I did while I was married to him for 17 years. Wow. Yeah. And my grandmother's family was Filipino. My family's Filipino. And there was a lot that happened during that war. And so you get these gleanings of, the work and the clearing that you're doing by the life that you've chosen to live out.
It just needs a moment, to really just take that in. This is, yeah.
Well, it's profound work, and it's important work. And I know that sometimes we can say, well, we have to take the time. And so often, Sheila, you and I are talking about things that, yes, they take time, whether it's feeding our families really wholesome food, or whether it's taking time to be out in nature, whether it's taking time to look at our own interpersonal journey. And so sometimes that feels like sort of a luxury that many people don't have. And yet it keeps coming back for me when I talk to young moms who say, well, but I'm struggling with this, and I'm just trying to get enough sleep and this and that. And so how do we fit these types of things into our very busy lives? And yet, I realize it's so important that we do this work.
Mm-hmm. How do you practice it? Is it something that, like, when you started, you said you were 43, and you, how do you go forward? Like, do you have to have a teacher? Can you work on this on your own?
I so believe in just having a daily practice. I had a show a while back where I interviewed a bunch of amazing experts myself, and having a ritual, something that is sacred to you, that resets you and allows you to go into your heart and really like do a scan of what's going on, whether it's a practice of meditation or a walk with your dog in the morning, a quiet cup of tea in the afternoon, a sit in the sunshine, whatever it is for you. Everybody has different things that they love to drop in with. And it's just that quiet reflection to honor yourself. And the healing work does not have to be work. It can really be just a draping off, like when you feel the sun coming in and you decide to take your vest off and you take your sweater off. It's like, just, warm up, open your heart and just, okay. And then it just starts to flow, and things come up and things start to peel off. So it doesn't have to be this, the paradigm of having the psychologist for 25 years is really old and gone. I mean, healing can be as quick as, that. Just identify, drop in, and it can clear.
That's
really,
huge.
Truly.
That's really huge. And that's really for the mamas who can't find the time, listen to this, because that I'm looking at you and I'm like, okay, I can do that,
Yes.
Because I definitely need the practice, and that's with everything, Maria, like you said, like it's the practice of good nutrition. It's the practice of a schedule sometimes that we need for homeschooling, It's the practice, but meditation is a huge one that I have been yearning for, that I need to do,
Yeah. So whatever daily practice it is that you choose, I think that's such a great way to just honor, ourselves and integrate it into a busy lifestyle. It can be even when you're cooking. It could be in the kitchen, kids don't bother me. I'm going to prepare a meal, and you just allow yourself to be with yourself in your heart and let things come up and flow over you. And
it's always the heart, really the actual like positioning of your body, of throwing your arms, your shoulders back and really breathing with your heart first. That's huge.
Well, we talk about parenting as a healing journey, as a spiritual path, and it sure, that certainly comes into play every single day. And we deepen our commitment to parenting from a place of deep intention and love. We look at the work that we have to do to be as conscious as we can. And so this is so beautiful to really look at how we can do that so quickly. And so I really appreciate these insights. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think, it's a lifetime journey as we're all on it. And there's always little pieces that can come up. It's not just an overnight shift to clear everything, but the little pieces that present themselves are the ones that are ready.
That need attention.
That are ready. Yeah. Different stages in your life. I mean, like I said, I wasn't until my 40s that I actually had an opportunity to be open to see.
Right.
So in my, 20s and 30s, I was, all ages, we're still doing our piece to clear or to move forward to whatever is our potential. But I think there's different stages when we actually give ourselves the opportunity to have a good look.
Right. And it's when you sit, when you pause, when you're quiet, that these things show up. I had something happen to me as a child, and it was compartmentalized. And the recollection did not come to me until my 30s, and it was just like, and that was because I think I don't know what would have happened if I would have, I think I would have had a lot more issues at that time. But I think for, self-preservation, I compartmentalized and I moved on. And then when it came up to my 30s, I was able to deal with it and be with it and talk it out over with my sister and realize that that story did not serve me, and move through it.
Yeah, that you said that, the story. And I think so often we can really look at that. And I think we worked with this idea of, is this a story that I'm telling myself, or is this work that I have to do? And I have to say, right now I'm visiting with my mother, who's 88 years old, And we're going through boxes and boxes of slides from my family, all the way back to even before, us children were born, the family slides. And it's so interesting seeing the visual history of decades of our lives. And so, really this whole concept of that we do have a long period of time to work on this, that we have a whole lifetime to do the work. And that when we're in this phase of raising our children, the work may look differently. The work we do in our teens or 20s might look different than it is in our 30s and 40s. And then as we continue to age, we continue to deepen that practice. And so it's really lovely to look at that and realize that we have the time, that it doesn't always have to look like what we think, the image that we have, that it's going to be fixed overnight. So it's just really fun to be looking at all of those stages.
Yeah, and it's interesting as when that came up, it was about the same age as my children were. One of them was, and the information that I learned from my own childhood was information that I could use to help my daughter navigate. So like you said, like it came up so that it was to be aware of who you surround, who's around with your children. And so I'm very aware about sleepovers. I'm very aware, of when they're going to people's houses and stuff like that, knowing what's going on because of my experience in that.
Right. And I think as women too, and mothers, we get these intuitive hits and these, these deep yearnings, like, okay, this is the time. My daughter was nursing still when I was having a lot of this clarity around these things. And it's like, yeah, this is what I want for her. We want our children to be able to have the freedom. We want them to have freedom to choose, not be stuck in what we did to their own not knowing.
Right.
Well, so often we see in families too, these patterns repeat over and over again. We can see the pattern. And so when we can see it, obviously we want to break it, but when there's these unseen patterns, we still need to do that work. It's just fascinating.
Right. Or we get to do the work. We don't have to, right?
Oh, right.
Right? We can choose to do it, free up some space.
Yeah, but we get to.
Yeah.
How lucky are we?
Yeah, exactly.
That we have that.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So usually we ask our guests, do you have a personal mantra or guiding principle that serves you?
My favorite is always go back to Mahatma Gandhi, and it's, be the change that you want to see in the world. Yeah. And it's just profound to me, because there's nothing outside of yourself that you can affect unless it's interiorly looked at first. Right. Yeah. In relationship with everything, personal, friends, family, and hugely our children. So for me, it's been a big look to just pave the way as well as I can, not to beat myself up,
right,
but to just keep my heart open and continue to create an environment where my daughter can thrive. At least keep after it. Keep dusting out the webs, keep my witchy broom and, dust off my front patio, so to speak, the strings of my heart.
Yeah, because they are our teachers. And like every relationship we have is a reflection of our own self, our own shadow, our own light, right? So we surround ourselves with the people that bring heighten our vibration and bring it up. And then when we're confronted with the shadow, we it's something to sit with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a gift. It's a gift to have those relationships that rub.
The pull, the opposites. And that's what makes each one vibrate higher.
Exactly.
Cool.
I love the image of sweeping off the front patio. Keep me.
I know. Like a witchy broom.
I'm gonna share that one. I love that. So I can sweep off the front patio and keep away the cobwebs, and open up my heart. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So how can our listeners find out more about you and your work? Because I know you have a website. So tell us about your website, and as well as some programs that you offer monthly.
So my website is Your Daily Reset, and you can find information there. And I have programs monthly where I'll gather people and they can come in and they can have a taste of this type of work. And I will be holding another one in April, and I can post it on your site.
Yeah, we'll put it on
somewhere.
our show notes. We have
Mhm.
that.
And I work with clients privately, so you can call. And what I'm offering for your show is, if there's somebody who's listening to the show, I'm going to offer a free 30-minute session for a drop-in.
Awesome. Thank you.
So they can come book an appointment. And we also do, I also work with other people, and we collaborate and we have events. So
Yeah. So if people looking to collaborate, we can
Yes.
collaborate. They can collaborate with you. And do you work virtually at all, or is it
Absolutely.
mostly? Okay. Very
I
good.
work actually mostly virtually.
Okay.
So we can hop on a,
So we can have somebody from the East Coast contacting you and help you.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Awesome.
lovely of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, Teri, we could talk for hours and
I know.
hours, and so, but thank you so much for being on with us, Maria and I. We really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank
Yeah,
you, ladies.
thank you. This has been so fascinating. I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
And I appreciate the work you moms are doing. Thank you so much for having me, and for continuing to bring this work out into the world for all the new moms and those of us who are just gleaning from all the other works.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fabulous journey of parenting. It's the most wonderful thing we can be doing. And so, but we can do it in community with these moms I know. And so,
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see you next time on The Moms I Know.
Thanks for joining us today for The Moms I Know. To learn more about Sheila and her online program, The Mom Map, visit purplebeetnutrition.com. For Maria's monthly blog and to learn more about her group programs and retreats, visit soquelessentials.com. That's SOQUEL essentials.com. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Moms I Know. Until next week, have a joyful family journey.